Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Com Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. Today, I'm joined by the Team 980's Craig Hoffman, also the host of the Take Command podcast with former Redskins tight end Logan Paulson. Craig and I always have good discussions, so I love having him come on. We talk a lot about Jaden Daniels and just his moments in the clutch and how rare he is. And man, we start already talking about where he ranks, not just as a quarterback, but as a player in the NFL. And it's kind of amazing that we're at that point, but it's all justified. Anyways, so stay tuned for that. In a minute, we'll get to Craig. And don't forget, on Tuesday night, I'll still be doing my live stream with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, 7:30 Eastern time. Join us for that. I'll have another podcast on Thursday, my 5 things I think on Friday, and the game is Saturday night. Still talking football on January 13th. How about that, folks? Kind of fun, isn't it? Anyways, before I get to Craig, just a couple little nuggets from Dan Quinn. We talked to him today via Zoom. They'll be back out at practice on Tuesday. It's a different week because it's a short week. So Tuesday is like a Wednesday for them. Wednesday's like a Thursday. Thursday's like a Friday. Got it? There you go. Anyways, so just a couple little nuggets. A lot of it was just kind of more big picture stuff. The news was that Jordan McGee re-injured his hamstring. He'll be out for Saturday's game against the Lions. It's a loss for special teams. And then he was asked about Marshawn Lattimore and just kind of where he's at with things. And one thing I told you after the game, I didn't feel like he does not look like himself. Not that he's hurt, but that he's still kind of working his way back into it. And that's kind of what Quinn said, is that he is, kind of working his way back into things. And the only way you can do that is by getting out on the field. But he stressed how much they loved having him and they loved his competitive. So there you go. And then there's no update on anybody else. We'll start getting those throughout the week on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, etc. So there you go. And for you gold members, I will be doing a private Zoom this week. I'm not sure which night yet because I need to see how things are going to break on Wednesday. So it'll either be Wednesday night or Thursday night. And I think probably most likely Thursday night. So anyways, stay tuned for that. I'll say something probably during the live stream Tuesday so you can figure out when that private Zoom will be. And there you go. That's all you got for me, folks. I'm tired, so I'm going to turn it over to my conversation with the Team 980's Craig Hoffman.
Playoffs? We're talking about playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score 6. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code KEIM, K-E-I-M. That's code KEIM for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, Craig. So on the way to the game on Sunday, it was Sunday, right? Yeah,
it was Sunday, John. It was Sunday.
It was Sunday. My mind's all messed up right now. So I'm driving with Sam Ford and we're kind of going over the game. Like, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And I'm like, Tampa has the edge here and here. You just guys like Jaden Daniels just do things and you can, and what is the point value you put on that? You know what I mean? And so he just is a different dude. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on just watching him and how you now assess him, not just as a rookie quarterback, he's way beyond that, but just as an athlete and just as a playmaker.
I mean, he's a top 10 player, top 10 quarterback for sure in the league. I don't know about top 10 player if you want to add in some of the like the Patrick Surtains and Derrick Henrys and some of the best offensive Jamar Chase. But in terms of impact, the quarterback position is such an outsized impact on the game. And I mean, name me if you think that sounds crazy. Name 9 guys you'd rather have. And I challenge you to do it. And I don't think you can. I think he's a top 5 MVP finisher this year. And we know that that's not a guarantee of future success. It's not going to be linear growth from here until he's the greatest of all time. But I think I said this last time I was on your show. Like, he's going to be the highest paid player in football, barring something terrible happening in the next couple of years. Like, he is on that path to be in that tier of player. And there's a reason those guys get paid all that money. Washington has a responsibility to try before they have to pay him all that money to take advantage of the rookie quarterback contract and really be smart. It doesn't mean they have to go spend like crazy people, but I just think it's hard to really put a value on that. But I think it's also how and when he makes plays that he just breaks defenses in ways that are hard to account for. Like, what do you do? And I think that the image that captures that from the game against Tampa is that final first down he gets where Kalijah Cansey, who had such a good game and just had a hard time tackling Jaden for a lot, but at least on most plays was able to slow him up enough that his teammates get there, literally grabs Jaden's towel like it's flag football and then winds up chasing him. Jaden gets the first down. And there's this moment where Cansey's got the towel in one hand and his other hand is open, and he just puts both on his helmet like, oh my God, I can't believe that guy got away from me. And you're just not supposed to be able to do that in the NFL. And he does it every single week. And I think that's the thing that's crazy is the consistency of it that goes to his cool, calm demeanor. He does it with his arm. He does it with his legs. It's everything. And there is like sports is a mix of psychology and strategy, and he is fairly elite in both. He breaks your strategy, and psychologically, he is as good as you could possibly ask for in a leadership role.
And that's one of the things I want to get to too, because like that's as big a part of the situation for him. It's to me that's a bigger part of his game than the talent, and the talent is immense. We see that, but if you don't have the other side, we're not talking about him the same way. Because there are a lot of guys who deal with a lot of things. Like Alex Smith had a lot of talent in San Francisco. I don't know that he was quite like this, but he had to deal with anxiety issues and things like that. Marcus Mariota had some of that stuff too. Like you don't know what else, and that's not a knock on them. It's just that you don't, what someone else is dealing with. He just is so good at dealing with that aspect of the game. And like even after the game, he's talking about how he doesn't really remember some of those moments late because he's so focused on what he has to do that it's just I don't know, man. Like to be able
Well, it's funny to hear him say that because you think of other elite mental people, competitors in this sport, and like Sean McVay comes to mind.
Yeah.
And Sean can tell you what he called on third down in 2014 in a random game they lost 30-7. Like, hey, it was 4:18 to go. It was 3rd and 12. And he'll be like, yeah, I called X jet right, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, what is wrong with you, man? And it just proves that like not everyone's the same, but to be elite is to be the best version of whatever your thing is. And for Jaden, he's able to just be in the moment present, and he doesn't necessarily carry that with him. I mean, I'm sure he does subconsciously, and sometimes I'm sure it helps because, he'll get presented something that looks familiar and something will go off in his head and he'll know what to do the second time around. He hasn't made a lot of the same mistake twice, but I think there is just an ability for him to carry it well. And, not to go all like frou-frou on it, but like, that's why mental health is really important is like, he's very mentally healthy. He knows his routines. He knows his patterns. He knows how to keep himself in the best possible way so that his immense physical talents can be maximized. Because otherwise you do have all these players that if it's not right up here in their head, for whatever reason. And some of that is a natural IQ thing with how football smart they are. Some of that is just emotionally being able to keep it in check. It's the ability to have clarity in tense moments. Like these are all aspects of mental health, mental training, mental fortitude, whatever word that you want to use to make it click, that Jaden has that maximizes the physical skill that, as you said, is absolutely immense and is so wide and dispersed throughout how they use it, that it covers the running, the throwing, every aspect of offensive football.
And it's funny because you bring up the clutch moments, and it seems like the more intense the moment, the more calm he becomes. And it's like he embraces it so much. And even like the touchdown to Terry, there's now he has a good pocket, but he's looking right first. Like there's no panic in him getting to his other reads. And I just think like that, you look back at the Cincinnati touchdown to McLaurin and just Cliff Kingsbury's having a hard time getting the play in. He's just, he's staying calm. He's keeping others calm. It was his third game. And then he drops in a dime. And even the one he had to McLaurin on Sunday, where he's getting drilled and he drops in it. And Terry makes a great catch. But that's an absolute dime in a pressure, in a tense situation. Like it's hard to grasp how somebody like that operates. Like,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
there's something innate to it. And like I haven't watched a lot of the game back. I know you haven't had a chance to at the time that we're recording this either. But there's a play on the first drive that I think illustrates this really well. It's one of the 7 plays, I guess, that I have watched back. But they call like a halfback swing. They actually ran this play again later in the game, and they're able to do it. It's one that I've recognized from Cliff's playbook in Madden. They call it halfback swing in Madden for anyone else that plays. But basically, you have either a fullback or a tight end that's going to go out and like it looks like they're running a flat route, but their purpose is to block. And then the running back's going to swing out, and it's a one-man screen, right? Out in front with the blockers. You have the receivers to that side clear out. And it doesn't come off right. Like there's something off with the spacing, and Jaden kind of recognizes it, but he also realizes, and he's getting pressure. So he's like, I don't have time to deal with this. But he realizes if I run over there, now I have the guy that was supposed to be blocking for the running back blocking for me, and I have the running back as a blocker. And so he winds up getting 7 yards on a scramble, and they wind up obviously, not converting on that drive because they miss on 4th down. But he realizes, like, as this is all happening in real time, you can see him pointing at the blockers and who to block and orchestrating and being like, hey guys, if we move the chess pieces, this can work out. Like, we're going to save this. It's going to be fine. And same thing on some of these big throws down the field. That big one to Terry's on that one. He just realizes, like, if I get the ball out at this time, I might get hit, but like it's going to be fine. It doesn't matter what happens to me if I get this ball out. There's a sense of timing and space. I think the space is the big one that's innate, like a spatial awareness with him on a football field that's just really, really different and special. And it's unlike anyone I've ever covered. I've heard you say on the show that like it's unlike anything you've ever covered. It's just different. And it's hard to, like, you see it with Lamar and Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes and like these elite guys on TV. This is different watching it every single week in person to this level. And it is hard to describe. And, talking to some elite guys over the years who we have had the chance to cover, or who have covered in other sports, like they sometimes have a hard time describing it as well. LeBron's super rare that he often can be like, this is exactly what happened. He's got the McVay thing to him, just in basketball. But often they're just like, I don't know, I made the play, because to them, it's so innate. It's so natural that that's just what they were supposed to do.
It is. And I think to that point too, and the pressure is keeping your calm in there and not forcing throws. Like how many throws has he really forced this year where you're like, oh my God, he got, like, we would watch, God bless Taylor Heineke, but man, that dude got away with a lot of picks, right? And that's not, obviously he's a different level of talent, but it's
For
also
sure.
it's also the mentality under pressure. And I think, when you're not forcing the turnovers and when you're in 4th down situations, you can trust this guy is going to make a good decision. And I think that's one thing for Kingsbury. It's like somebody asked me the other day about his decision making and just how rare it is when he makes the wrong decision. It's not like nobody's perfect, but you don't see him force, like, again, like, we haven't seen a lot of picks that are just dropped, right? You might see him try to squeeze one in, and maybe there's an errant throw, but you don't see him crumbling under that pressure ever. And I just think that is so rare for somebody his age at that position in this league. Like it's just, and Craig too, he doesn't throw a lot of picks, but it's not like he's not aggressive.
Right. No, that's a great point, because there are some extremely tight windows that he will throw in. I was just able to pull it up as you were talking. We're going to play quiz the host here. John, they played 17 games. Let's see if this also has the playoff game already pulled up so we can get. Yeah, it does. So they've played 18 games this season. By PFF's metric, How many turnover worthy plays do you think he has?
Oh my God. 10?
12.
Okay, I was saying
12 in
10 or
18
11.
games as a
That's
rookie.
that's phenomenal.
It's crazy. It's absolutely bananas. I can try to in a second if we want. Look up like Heineke's stats from a couple of years ago and see
Yeah,
how
and
many.
I listen. I love Taylor,
Yeah,
but
it's just it's a
he
different roller
definitely,
coaster, different ride.
yeah. As Grant, you say he has that horseshoe in his back pocket there.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
that's like that's more typical, right? When you get into some stressful situations, and that's what has been most impressive to me. And I think it's why players, I mean, it's among the reasons why these guys have embraced him so much is because of just how he conducts himself. It's a very mature way. And he also, it's funny because somebody asked him the other day about like what his, if he feels like something about his X factor. He's like, that's for Dan Quinn to talk about, not
I
me.
know, which I laughed so hard at that because like that is a Dan thing. It's like we got to find their
Yeah,
superpowers, we got to find their X factors, and Jaden's like, I don't know about all that crap. Like
yeah,
whatever Dan says, man,
yeah.
just do it.
But I
But I think,
like that.
yeah, I love that, and I think on the decision making side of it, it's not just can you distribute the football to the right place? Can you make the decision like, hey, we have the 3-by-1. Are you going to go to the one isolated route over here and throw the deep ball? Are you going to trust the route concept we have on the three? Like, it's not just that. It's we're going to put the ball in your hands with a run pass option. Like, we're
Right.
going to trust you that, hey, man, if it's not there, we know you're going to try to pull it and make the play, but like, we're going to trust you to hand it off. And more often than not, he makes the right one. There's a bad one on the first drive. I will say that. Man, Jeremy McNichols has at least a
Oh,
10-yard
yeah.
gain on,
Yeah.
one that Kalijah Cansey blows up. But in those big fourth down situations, like he consistently makes the right decision. Run pass option. Can I get out on the edge? Can I find a receiver? Do I tuck it and run? If I'm going to tuck it and run, I better be right here because we're out of downs. And time after time after time after time, I think I saw the stat. They had the best fourth down proficiency for any team, not just this season, but in the last 25 years. Like,
It's remarkable.
it's crazy. That's the entire John Keim era. Like, what are we talking about here?
Almost the entire. But it is, and that's why it's funny because like I had no issue with Quinn going for all those because I
Same.
understood what you're trying. You're on the road against a good offense. You need touchdowns and you want to get the momentum. And I think they have so much trust in him and the offense. But look at the guys. It's funny because I had some Eagles fan get mad at me or something like on Twitter or X, whatever, because I said something about Jaden. I don't remember what it was. But he's like, well, let's see if he has, 3 offensive coordinators in 4 years and this and that. I said, well, let's see what he would do behind the NFL's best O line with the NFL's best running back with 2 high-level receivers.
Right.
And I say that because like he's making this work. I mean, McLaurin has had a great year and he's a very good receiver. We know that. De'Ami Brown comes through in a playoff game.
Love
Alameda
it.
Zaccheaus has come through in key games. Like,
By the way, a guy who did nothing in Philadelphia.
right, exactly. And so, like, they're making it work. And this is Kingsbury's offense. He's designing this stuff. But I think the maturity and the mental aspect too goes to, other quarterbacks might think like, oh my God, we've got to get the ball to McLaurin at all costs. And we've seen that at times, right? Maybe you start to force it a little bit. Whereas he's like, hey, patient and it'll get there because these guys are open. Now, if you're not matriculating down the field, as Hank Stram would say, then you've got to look for other stuff. And we know that, right? But they're making it work by hitting those guys. Like it's remarkable. But I think that
And
speaks to, Kingsbury, but also speaks to his patience and decision making.
my favorite part about the staff offensively, and I think Dan deserves some credit for this too as the head coach, is how they have been able to find the right roles for basically every player.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily like some of them are pretty predictable, like Austin Eckler. Like, okay, there's certain runs that are good for him, and let's get him in the screen game and get him in space. Okay, cool. Now, defense knows that too, and yet they're still able to do it. So it's a heck of an accomplishment. But the 3 years, the group that drafted De'Ami Brown couldn't get anything out of De'Ami Brown. Year one, and I'm sure De'Ami's put in a lot of work. He's worked really, really hard. So this does not take anything away from him. But I also think De'Ami probably worked pretty hard in the other off seasons before this season too. And to say, all right, instead of just trying to force him as a vertical player, a guy that's 4'3", and like, hey, he's pretty good at blocking. So maybe we'll make him one of our blocking wide receivers. It's like, well, maybe he's good at blocking because he's super explosive and physical. What routes can we have him run where that physicality matters? And so like now let's get him on some hitches. Let's get him on some spot routes. Let's get him on some slants. what happens if the ball's in his hands? It seems to be pretty good. Like, let's run in on some screens and let's get him some end arounds. Like, they have unlocked a different level of De'Ami Brown than anybody thought existed that's watched him play, which is hilarious because the last guys that coached him were the ones that drafted him with a pretty decent draft pick. So I think that is the thing that has been part of my favorite, or probably my favorite thing. And you could say the same thing too about the defense, right? Frankie Louvu, it's easy to say like, oh, of course he's the Micah Parsons player, but like he wasn't that in Carolina. He did it in a very, very minor way. He's lined up way more on the edge this year than he ever did in Carolina. And they've also limited kind of what he does as an off-ball linebacker to make sure that he's protected in certain situations. So let's lean into strengths, minimize weaknesses, and lo and behold, you maximize your roster. It sounds so simple, but most staffs in the NFL, and I do feel comfortable saying most, aren't actually that good at it. This staff is great at it.
I 1,000% agree, because you always hear coaches say that, but you don't always see them living that. I think one of the few coaches I've seen here who absolutely did that was Greg Williams back in the day. And as a defensive coordinator, was excellent at that, because he would find, and I always appreciate this, and I always would try to apply it to when I watch my kids play sports, whatever, are they maximizing what they have? And he would take guys and just like, okay, this guy does this well. I have this package where I want someone to do this. He can squeeze in there. So you make every guy feel valuable as well. And I think that's what they've done. And I think it leads to the kind of camaraderie that this group has. Like people, I don't think people feel left out. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but like, listen, they're using McNichols. And I mean, they found out Jeremy McNichols, this is his 11th franchise, for God's sake.
Right. He hadn't taken a snap since like 2021, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's, and so he's like, they're making it work with him and Eckler on the field at the same time. And Robinson's on the bench at times. So, it's like, but they do that very well. And I think it's a big credit to them. But with De'Ami, the funny thing is, when they drafted him, I remember his first training camp talking to a scout. And he's like, that one of the things that he liked about him is he thought he could do really well on slants and break tackles because he was physical. And then you didn't see it. I mean, it was just like, what are we doing? So, I mean, you see it once in a while, but not that often. And it was, in the screens, like he's really good on that in that area.
Yeah.
And I think he's added an element that has been welcomed. So,
well, and then the other part of that is, talk about guys not feeling left behind. Imagine if all you felt at work was success, that every time you were asked to do something, it was something you were good at and you did it and you were successful at it most of the time. Like you're going to feel pretty good about how you do your job. And so when you don't ask people to do stuff they're not good at, they're not going to experience a ton of failure. And they're probably going to have a better mentality and morale around the office. And this office just happens to be on national television in front of a bunch of people, where if you fail all the time, you're going to hear about it every time you get on social media, when you're at the grocery store, all that stuff. And so, yeah, if Andrew Wiley or Nick Allegretti or Brandon Coleman has a particularly bad day on the offensive line, are those guys going to maybe hear about it? Sure, because there's only so much not pass blocking you can ask an offensive lineman to do. But it's not like, hey, De'Ami, why aren't you not doing X, Y, Z? Like De'Ami, when he goes to the grocery store now, probably is like, hey, man, why don't they get you the ball more? And he's probably like, well, we seem to be winning okay, so I think I'm okay. I love what they're doing. Go Commanders.
And I think to the other point too, and McLaurin is a guy, I mean, obviously they use him in the past. He has 11 red zone touchdowns this year. That's as much as he had the last 5 years combined.
That wild.
To me is staggering. And they struggled, at times down there. So like here's a guy that has a skill in there. And, Logan Thomas was good in there, and then they stopped using him in there. So it just,
it makes sense too for Terry, right? He's the best contested catch guy in the league. Space is condensed. Every catch is contested. Throw it to the contested catch guy.
Yeah. And that's why, like you saw it yesterday, now there was an incompletion, but that's where you're going. You're on the he's got a one-on-one there. And so you're going over there. You have Zach Ertz, who can get open down there. Now, I will say Levante David, like they dropped him in the right areas, a similar route that he ran against Atlanta.
Well, also helps that when Levante is allowed to give him a giant bear hug.
Well, there is that. Well, I think on this one, it was in front of him. I think it was in front of him. But they took away the route, but he does it. He's a very good route runner inside there. And so he's a very good target. But they use him in that role, and which was what they planned to do anyways. But with McLaurin, I think it's just been a nice bump there. And I think that speaks to what you're talking about, is just the ability to use guys. And even on defense, like you have like Sanders still. putting him outside, like he does not fit their profile of an outside corner, right? He doesn't. Not physically, mentally he does. And I think they tapped into that aspect. And
Well, and then I think they also tell him like you can give up X, don't give up Y.
right,
And that is, I know we've both talked about that a ton this year, so I don't need to harp on it, but like that is freeing mentally for a corner where it's like if I give up the comeback, that's what I was told I'm allowed to give up. So I'm just going to go to the next snap, and I'm not worried about my coach yelling at me. That one's on the call. That one's on how I was taught. But if I give up this, well, then that's a problem, and then we're going to go have a discussion about it. But it also these guys are very humane in how they do all that stuff. The standard is high, but it's applied in a smart way. So yeah, I think that is enormous to just say, hey, Mikey, we realize that there's things that you probably can't do because or positions we don't want to put you in because they're not advantageous to you. So we're not.
right.
And there's a couple of positions. I mean, like Noah's struggled at times in the slot this year where it's like, hey man, we just need you to cover. And it's like, well, that's hard because playing nickel quarter in the NFL is really hard. And he's had really nice moments and he's had some not nice moments. And obviously Mikey's had the same thing on the outside. Juice has had the same thing. Lattimore's had the same thing. Playing corners really hard, but by and large, they try to make it so those guys aren't in bad spots. And even when they are in quote unquote bad spots, often they've got help. They just haven't given up. Knock on wood, because they're about to face the best explosive team in the league. A ton of like touchdown explosive plays recently, and that has obviously helped the defense in a major way curtail the point totals, even if some of the yardage totals have been kind of high.
And going to your point on Sanders, I go back again to that Bengals game. There was a lot that was revealed there. And I go like Jaden's thing, but I also felt like that was when the defense started to play more physical, even though they gave up 33 points.
Yeah.
They started to play. I felt like you started to see Jeremy Chin, Quan were really kind of getting into it more. And then even in that game where Sanders still gives up a deep one, I think it was to Jamar. And it's like, okay, it's Jamar Chase, but he understood what happened wrong. And basically, they had told him, you cannot, if he gives you a double move and get up, just let it go up top, but you can't get beat on this. And he knew that. And I haven't seen that really happen on that double move with him again. And I'd have to
Not
go
that I
back
can think of. I feel like there was one deep one he gave up where he just got beat, but it wasn't like a technique
and
double.
that's right. And you can accept that. But if you're telling a guy, don't get beat on this, and then they do, you're going to be mad. But do you learn? And I think that's why, again, they like him. And I think he's the kind of guy too, where just listen, like Lattimore's got the dog in him and he's going to always get up in your face. I wonder how right he really is at this point because
Agreed.
I didn't think he looked like the guy I've watched in the past. But one thing that those two both share, I think, is the ability to just line up and compete again. And I think Sanders still does that very well. And it's again, we talk a lot about Jaden about the maturity. I think he's to me, he was always like the Terry McLaurin of defense, where you draft a guy in the second, third round, and he's a guy that can help change the culture or build the culture you want to build. And that's one of the things I think he certainly provides.
Yeah, that was something that, you're doing the shows right after the draft, and everyone is like, that kid's my favorite kid I've ever covered. And you're like, oh, okay. All right. They got one. Got it. And understand why Adam Peters wants him. Understand why you got the commander's tag. No further explanation needed.
Right. And I think, then you look at, and the other ones, it's funny because I didn't know what Bobby Wagner had left,
Yeah.
And,
I mean, he did lead the NFL in tackles last year, which I think
He did.
sometimes, which we know from the Zach Brown days that leading the NFL in tackles doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually playing great. But I'm pretty sure Bobby Wagner's doing it. Like he's not going outside of scheme and structure just to accumulate stats.
Correct.
And like 183 tackles, I think is what he had last year. That's a ridiculously high.
And
So he clearly had something
coverage.
left.
For him, it was more
Right.
about coverage in Seattle. But that ability, if you can do that, then you can build around that. And you may give something else up, but you got that. And we see that more in the run game. We saw it yesterday with a few tackles, but just to have like there's a sense about him in those moments as well. But like Jaden, I mean, this guy goes in every Tuesday and is there really late and brings other guys in with him. That's why he is what he is. And it's been fun to watch a guy like that play and be around him.
He also is such a heavy hitter. When you talk about the physicality aspect, like Mikey gets it a lot of credit for that with what he does in the perimeter. Obviously, Frankie's a guy that I think is highlighted as, and Chin. Those two guys are like, oh, those are the heavy hitters. Wagner's pads just feel like they're filled with cement.
Yeah.
Every time he hits someone, it's just like, God, that was a big collision. And I think that element, plus, talk about using guys well and not asking them to do stuff they're not good at. Obviously, sometimes you're going to have to you put him in coverage, like it's inevitable, but like they blitz him a ton. There's some stat I had last week that I don't remember the exactness off the top of my head, but I think it's that they're the only two, Luvu and Wagner, are the only two teammates that are off-ball linebackers in a league that had 20 plus pressures this year. And obviously, it's a little bit cheating for Luvu because he does line up on the edge some, but that means Wagner still had 20 plus pressures. Like that is a really big number. That's more than one per game, obviously, if folks can do that math. So the Bobby's ability to blitz and create pressure and just last night he should have had a sack on one play where he actually ran too hard through the running back and then wound up passing Baker. So I think again, like from the leadership, there's like a humility to Jaden and Bobby as well as the two leaders on each side of the ball that I think is really good. It allows for an inclusive environment, maximizing their skill sets. Like it's very cohesive in terms of the program, if you will, that they're building. I kind of laugh often when that term is thrown around on the pro level, but this does really feel like a program that's being built here in the same way that Baltimore has a program, that Pittsburgh has a program, that the best teams in the league that have been good for a long time, Kansas City under Andy, like they've got a program out there. And sure, having Mahomes and Allen and up in Buffalo and Lamar in Baltimore, like that sure helps your program. The 5-star recruited quarterback, good addition to the program, but the program still like those guys are a part of the program. And I think that also is very, very helpful.
And to that point, I think the other thing is when you have two guys like that, they're alpha players. And yet in the locker room, they coexist extremely well. There's not like a hey, this is like Bobby Wagner didn't come in here and start saying, this is my team, and Jaden's not coming here saying, I'm the guy. And so I think it allows for a locker room culture to grow and develop when the leader on this side of the ball and the top dude on this side of the ball have that kind of mindset. And I think that goes a long way in the locker room. And they have a big brother, little brother relationship. And it's kind of funny to be around in the locker room because they'll, Bobby will say stuff and Jaden will come back at him like the little brother would, right? And whether it's NBA
It's the
or
most kid-like I ever see Jaden. Like he's so mature all the
yes.
time, except for when he's around Bobby, and then he's basically a little brat, little brother, and it's hilarious, and I enjoy the hell out of it.
Oh yeah, and Charlie Muley, who was number 2 in their communication department, he'll rag on him for being a Mets fan. But it's like that's normal stuff. But I think their relationship it's not the only reason why it's a good locker room. But I think
Right.
their egos and how they put it aside to say like, well, yeah, I respect this guy for what he does, and I can share this role with him. They have different roles within it. Bobby's going to be the guy that's going to get up and talk to the team if it needs to be. Like he knows that he's the dude in that room.
He's the adult in the room,
Right.
literally.
But Jaden leads in a different in his way and brings guys along with that, and they both bring guys along. But there's no competition between the two to have that role,
Yeah, for sure.
and I
Um,
think that's important.
yeah, for sure. One thing from the game, John, that I just wanted to point out real quick, that is just remarkable, because I can't get this out of my head, and I just want to run this stat by you. How did the Commanders hold the ball for 35 minutes in that game while averaging 2.5 yards a rush?
I
Like that to
I
do
was,
that
was
with a rookie quarterback who then means the game's on his shoulders. Like it goes to all like we talk about pressure and the ability to deal with it. And the fact that he was totally unfazed by it. Like they held the ball for over 35 minutes with no running game. Their starting running back averaged 1.6 yards a carry, which I'm sure you'll talk about this later in the week. Like, I don't know if there's a Brian Robinson discussion that needs to be had. I know it's happening in comments, et cetera, but like that's terrible. And yet they played a ball control offense where they held the ball for 35 minutes to withstand that. And the third down pressure, the fourth down pressure, like it's how all this stuff that feels very, I don't know, like non-concrete, whatever that word is, that we've been talking about for 30 minutes. Like that's how it comes to play in the box score. Oh, it doesn't show up in the box score. It does. That's how. It's that kind of pressure when you can't make mistakes because this other thing that's supposed to be supporting you is not happening. And by the way, like the number one quarterback in EPA per dropback on Wild Card Weekend, pending the Vikings Rams game on Monday night, is Baker Mayfield. Like they had to keep him off the field. And the fact that Jaden led an offense that did while averaging 2.5 a rush, and that includes his rushes, by the way, is pretty wild. Like that's just an insane stat.
It is. And it's funny because, and this last thing for me, but I felt like a month or so ago, and I even asked, I think it was Dan Quinn or Kingsbury, one of them, like, do you feel like Jaden's game has gotten to the point now where he can help you overcome whatever issues at
I
receiver?
remember that.
Like,
Yeah.
this is when Noah Brown went out because I felt like he had risen to a point where you could put more on him. And I think they have and you know what? He's comfortable with it. And I think that's the best part for them.
Yeah, and I remember a couple weeks after that, even Sam Fortier, who's come up way too much on this show. Good God, that guy just inserts himself everywhere. Fortier asked Cliff, he's like, "Can you win if you're not running the ball well?" And Cliff was like, "Look, I don't want to, but like, yeah." I'm like, what a silly answer from an offensive coordinator with a rookie quarterback. Except for he's 100% right, and they just proved it in a playoff game. Wild stuff that you got to witness there in Tampa. And the thing is, they're going to need to play like that against Detroit because like Detroit is going to put up numbers against this defense. Their offense puts up numbers against everyone. Yeah. And so the best way to defeat their offense is to keep it on the sideline. So hopefully they get a little more help / a lot more help from their running game, but it's going to take that to win again. But also, do you have any doubt that he can do that if that's what's needed to do?
No, I don't. And I think this is obviously a much tougher one because Detroit has a better offense. So you have to finish all those drives. That's where the pressure comes in, but you don't worry about him. You know, he's not going to succumb to the pressure of the environment. Like it'll be a great environment, and think about this, like you go back just a few years and like, who would have thought like, oh yeah, the Reds, or the Commanders and the Lions, be playing a primetime Saturday night playoff game when that's just,
wow.
It shows when you get the right people in charge, you get the right play calls, you get the right quarterback, then things just go a lot better. And to your point, to what we started off on, I think there's just a couple of quarterbacks that other teams would pick ahead of this kid for the next 5 years.
And I don't think any of them are in the NFC.
No. So
all due respect, Mr. Goff.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And he's done a great job. But
yeah.
Anyway, plug whatever you got to plug here. Take command.
Yep. So we got the radio show 4 to 7 daily on the Team 980, which you can listen to on 980 AM, 1067 HD2 FM, or the free Odyssey app. We also stream that live on YouTube at the Team 980. Take Command podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts, including on YouTube. And then my YouTube page, we do a couple bonus things there on top of the highlights of both the radio show and the podcast at Craig Hoffman. So make sure you subscribe there. TikTok, as long as the government doesn't shut it down. Instagram Reels, Hoffman.sports. So I'm everywhere, John. There's too much of me out there on the internet.
Well, it's more.
It's true for all of us, probably.
Probably. Anyways, Craig, thanks a lot. Always enjoyed. Always good conversation. Appreciate it, man.
Agreed. Thanks for having me, John. All the best to you.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Craig for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. Again, join me and Bram on Tuesday night, 7:30 Eastern Time, for another live stream edition of the show. Bring your questions, bring your joy, bring your excitement, bring your concerns for the game against the Lions. We'll talk about all of it. Talk to you next time.